Okay, everyone, this is basically the grand finale for my set number 6 review, and basically this is where we're actually going to complete the unit circle. Okay, and here's why it's important. It's really important for many reasons. But for example, in IM3 or Trig Pre-Calc, a quiz I would give my students is I would give them a blank unit circle like this one, and I would say you have about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, fill in all the missing blanks, and ultimately you end up with this. Now that looks pretty overwhelming, right? But we're going to get most of it done in this video right now. So how do we do that? Well, one strategy, quite frankly, is you just take it quadrant by quadrant. For example, we're right here in the first quadrant, right? And so if I go straight across to the right, hopefully you agree that's 0 degrees. We also would say that's 0 radians. Okay? And then if we went straight up, hopefully you agree we would have 90 degrees. And 9 degrees is 180 divided by 2. Remember, 180 is really the same thing as pi. So we would say it's pi over 2 radians. Hopefully, so far so good. Now let's do the angles in between 0 and 90. Well, this first angle right in here is my 30-degree angle. The middle angle right in here, what's the middle between 0 and 90? Well, that's 45 degrees, right? And finally, the bigger medium angle right there is 60 degrees. And those numbers should sound familiar because we're going to derive them from the special right triangles. Okay? Before we do that, we might as well fill in the missing radians. Remember, 30 degrees here, for example, is really 180 divided by 6. And if 180 is pi, I know 30 degrees, you see, is simply pi over 6 radians. Okay? What about the 45? Well, that can be a little tricky, but 180 divided by 4, you see, is 45 degrees. So again, if 180 is the same thing as pi, I know 45 is simply pi over 4 radians. Finally, if I'm looking at the 60 here, I know 60 is really 180 divided by 3. Again, if 180 is the same thing as pi, which it is, I know 60 degrees is basically pi over 3. Let me try to keep this neater here. So far, so good. Now, the only thing we're missing now, guys, are the coordinates, right? Now, if we go straight across at 0 degrees, we know that this is simply 1, 0 here. Just doing the coordinate system, okay? Going straight up over here, we know we have 0, 1, okay? And then let's start with the 30, and let's do a little review. If you haven't watched my previous 3 videos, guys, you need to watch that, okay? But I'm going to quickly derive it here myself. Let me find a blank page here. What we learned is with a 30, 60, 90, if this is 30, the coordinate right there, again, guys, you need to watch my other previous 3 videos to understand this a little bit better, but our radius is 1. This is a unit circle after all, right? Unit circle meaning unit 1. And with the radius 1, what we learned is that that point right there is going to be square root 3 over 2 and 1/2. Okay? And I'm going to pause the video and set up the next two triangles to save a little time. Okay guys, I'm back. I wanted to speed things up here a little bit. Notice if you look down here, which I just circled in green, you'll note that with a 45-degree angle, I got square root 2 over 2, square root 2 over 2 as my coordinates. Okay? And if you look to the bottom right corner, you will note that with a 60-degree angle here, the coordinates would be 1/2 for x, square root 3 over 2 for y. And again, all of these I derived in my previous video, so you need to watch those. Okay? Well, if you agree with that, we have now completed the rest of the first quadrant. So this point right here, for example, I know its coordinates is square root 3 over 2, 1/2. Right here at 45 degrees, I know it's square root 2 over 2, square root 2 over 2. And at the 60-degree mark, I know it's 1/2 square root 3 over 2. And if you don't trust me, let's compare that to the completed unit circle. Right here, notice these are exactly the same values I got, including 0, 1, and 1, 0. Okay? Let's continue on here. Now, what about the second quadrant? Well, guys, let me adjust this a little bit here and enlarge it without twisting it. There we go. If we know everything over here, we can just reflect it over here and get exactly the same values. All right, for example, if we go straight across, we know that this is 180 degrees, also known as pi radians. Okay. This right here, follow the red, guys. This 30-degree angle right here, you see, that's 30 degrees from the x-axis. Well, this right here would be 150 degrees, because I would do 180 minus 30, right? I'm going 30 backwards, right? And in degrees radian, this is going to be 5 pi over 6. And if you forgot how to convert to radians, I'll show you in class. Please ask. The next two blanks, notice that this is 45 degrees right there. So 180 minus 45 means this is 135 degrees. And that would be equivalent to, in radians, of, let's say here, 3 pi over 4. And then finally, we have a 60-degree angle, right? Right there, 60 degrees. 60 degrees from 180 means this is a 120-degree angle. And what I mean by 120 from here to here, everyone see that from black? That's 120 degrees. And in radians, that's 2 pi over 3. Okay, and now let's just compare those to the completed unit circle here. You can see I have 150, 135, 120. I have the 2 pi over 3, 3 pi over 4, and 5 pi over 6. We're doing that perfectly. Now, what about these points out here? Well, it's really simply this. Look at the first quadrant again, guys. Here was my 30, right? It's going to mimic that when I switch it to the other side. Same thing with a 45 here, same thing with a 60 here. When I flip it to the other side over here, it's going to mimic those exact same values almost. And this is what I mean. At the 30 mark, right here, follow the light blue, it's going to be square root 3 over 2, 1/2. The only difference is I went left, right? So the x here has to have a negative. There's a negative there, guys. Sorry, I ran out of room. Square root 3 over 2. Right here at the 45-degree mark, Well, that's just simply square root 2 over 2, square root 2 over 2 again. The only difference is because I went left, this x value will have a negative value, right? The y's are still positive because we went up to get to those points, correct? And finally, this point right here, which will mimic this point right here basically, is 1/2 square root 3 over 2. The only difference is I'm going to have a negative there because I went left. And that's basically how the unit circle works. Now what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to complete this in class with you tomorrow. And I'm going to do a follow-up video summarizing this video and totally completing the unit circle. I just don't want to go too long. I'm already at the 11-minute mark, okay? But long story short, guys, I hope you can see that completing this unit circle right here is not nearly as difficult or daunting as it looks. The key thing is you got to practice it. And I'll give you opportunities in class to practice it with me. Okay, because I want you guys to be really good at this, because this is going to give you a huge game-changing advantage when you get into IM3 or advanced mathematics in general. Okay? But anyways, I'll see you in class, guys.